Hi, everybody. It's Julie for EllenHutson.com. Welcome to Hello Monday. Today I'm going to be making an interactive card featuring the Lawn Fawn reveal wheel. This is a really fun die to work with. At first, I was kind of intimidated, and then once I made a card with it, I was like, holy crow, this is super easy. I could just jack these out by the dozens. I'm also going to be working with the Essentials window stencils and the semicircle add-on. This one is new, and there are subsequent add-ons that all work as window shapes for the reveal wheel. But I was working with this because I wanted to combine the Essentials by Ellen unicorns and rainbows set. So here we go. I just wanted to share with you what comes in the Essentials set of stencils. There are other stencil sets, but these are very basic shapes, and you can see that they'll work with some of these subsequent add-ons for the reveal wheel. Now, I wanted to work with the semicircle add-on, which is new, and luckily that shape is in the Essentials pack because these are very basic shapes, but there are other stencils for the other shapes that are like more like an ice cream cone and a butterfly, etc., etc. So now the first thing I need to do to create the basis for this is to die cut it twice. I die cut that main panel first from some Nina Solar White, and then I'm going to die cut it a second time, again from the same cardstock, but I'm going to put my window. So this is the semicircle add-on window, and I'm going to align that up into the puzzle piece notch there that holds it all in place. And then I've got some washi tape here to anchor everything down, so when I send it through my Gemini Junior, nothing shifts. So I'm going to send that through, and here you can see I've got my two panels, one without a window and the one with the window that's going to go on top. That'll be my top layer. And then I also needed to cut the wheel itself and this little mounting disc, and you'll see how all this comes together. Now here's where the stencils come in. The cool thing about these stencils is that they line up perfectly with the wheel itself, and you can washi tape this to the shape, or you can actually do what I did. And I took a mini brad and just stuck it through the center there. And I'm going to use that because I need to rotate the wheel multiple times. As I just figured I might as well lock it in place there temporarily with that mini brad. Now I chose a shape that fits in the window, but I wanted to repeat stamp it. So I'm going to be rotating the stencil, and that way I can get 4 of these little starbursts from the Unicorns and Rainbows set stamped onto the wheel. So I'm just going to repeat this process over and over again. And I did want to mention I'm working with VersaFine Nocturne ink, but this was a big no-no because I was going to later color with Copic markers. Now, if I went on and used colored pencils, it would have been fine. If I'd used watercolor, but this is not watercolor paper, would have been fine. But a word to the wise when you're doing this, think about what coloring medium you're going to be working with later on, because this will determine what type of ink you use. And for alcohol markers, Memento, Tuxedo Black, or some other alcohol marker friendly ink would have been better suited. So I had to be really careful later on when I colored this in. So now the great thing about the stencil, I didn't have to trace the opening. I don't have to erase pencil lines later on. I can just remove the stencil. I don't need it anymore. I could just stamp right through that opening. And now I wanted to add some ink blending, and I just got these Picket Fence Studio brushes. These are the life-changing brushes, and holy moly, they really are life-changing brushes for me. I have tendonitis in my right arm, and that motion with the ink blending tool is just really hard on my arm, and I could never get a beautiful, soft, subtle, even blend until these brushes. I've even tried the Clarity Stamp brushes, and they work great over stencils, but if I just want to go straight onto the paper, these brushes are amazing. And I'm working with the two largest, or the one largest, just to create that background. You can clean it off by wiping it against a baby wipe and then against some clean text weight paper to just clean it off and dry it off. But I got such a beautiful blend. I'm tickled to death with these brushes. They are amazing. They really are life-changing. So now here's where things got kind of dicey for me because I did not stamp with the Memento ink. I used the VersaFine Nocturne, and I was using Copic markers. I'll have all the colors linked down below, but it really would have been much better if I'd known that from the get-go. I was kind of winging it. So now I'm going to top everything with a coordinating color of Stickles glitter. I love working with Stickles. It's one of my favorite embellishment products. And once I've got all my Stickles on there, I'm actually going to set that aside to dry while I work on the rest of the card. So now I've got my front panel here, and I decided I wanted to do some stamping on top. So I grabbed a sentiment from the Pure Magic sentiment set that coordinates with the unicorns and rainbows. And again, I'm inking up with a VersaFine Nocturne, and just gonna go ahead and get a nice impression there using my Misty Stamp Positioning tool. So now here's all my pieces. The stickles are dry, and I'm ready to assemble everything. Oh, and I did actually white emboss some clouds on that top shape there. You can't see them, but in real life they show up, and it's kind of a really neat soft, subtle background for the unicorn that gets mounted on later on. So now I'm going to take that mounting disc and the mini brad. I'm going to mount that through the back side of the wheel. Here you can see it on the back, and I need to put adhesive there. And I need to use something dimensional. So I'm going to grab the thin 3D foam mounting squares. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit too about how important it is to use some dimensional adhesive. So I've got the thin ones here. This is going to get popped on to that back panel. And in order to get that lined up on the panel, I needed to kind of fit that window through the opening on the top layer. See, that's where it needs to go. But you can't see through the, sorry, I'm having allergies big time right now. So if I clear my throat a couple times, I'm sorry. So now here you can see these score lines, and these score lines are critical because it helps you see where to position this wheel through the window. So I'm going to use those score lines as a guide. I've got my top panel. It's going to go over the top here, and I just want to position this wheel so that those score lines on the outer edges are not visible through that semicircle opening or through the notch on the right hand side. So I'm just kind of adjusting it a little bit. You just have to move it a smidge until you cannot see those score lines through either of those openings, and you pretty much got it lined up. Now there's other ways to do it, but that actually does work very easily and very well. So now I'm going to hold that in place. I want to make sure I don't, budge from that spot. Remove those little liners from those adhesive foam square thingies. And then I'm going to hold that in place, and I'm actually anchoring it down with my right hand. You can't see that through the panel because my fingertips are anchoring it down. And then I can layer that back panel right over the top. Some people like to layer it front down to bottom, but I found that this worked really well for me, and hey, it's all good, right? Whatever works for you. So there it is. It's stuck onto the back. I just pulled away the top layer, and it's exactly where it needs to be. So I was just testing it to make sure it spins correctly before I start putting all the layers together. So I need some more foam adhesive, and I'm going to grab the larger size of those thin 3D foam squares, and then I'm going to go ahead and remove the liner papers. Those things, like, I had some electrostatic stuff going on, and they kept sticking to me, sticking to my tweezers, sticking to me, sticking to everything. So I was kind of futzing with those, trying to get them off me, get them off me. So now I'm going to layer the top panel. I just found lining up the long edges and corners worked pretty well for me. And here you can see when you spin it, it's rotating properly through that opening. Now here's where I wished I'd used some of the regular thickness foam squares. I put tape runner here, and I shouldn't have done that. I should have used some dimensional adhesive here because the clearance between the back side of that interactive wheel and the base card is not enough for me. I don't have any fingernails, so I can't get under there and move that around very easily. It's kind of a challenge for me. But if I had popped it up with regular thickness foam dots or foam squares, I wouldn't have had a problem with it. Now I had a unicorn that I'd already die cut, stamped, colored with Copic markers. I went ahead and mounted that with the thin 3D foam squares on top. Here everything's working. I did add a little bit more stickles to embellish my unicorn and let everything dry. But this is such a fun interactive card. So I hope you'll give it a try, and I love being able to use this die set with other stamps in my collection. Thanks for watching.